everyone, welcome back to Flying Solo with Kat. And today is going to be my review of the Acolyte episodes 6 and 7. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do 6 and 7 together was because of episode 6 and my thoughts on it. It was probably my least favorite episode that has come out of the Acolyte, which is a little shocking to a lot of people. And also, I just kind of wanted to take a break. I feel like I wanted to watch Star Wars Explained, a couple of other podcasts, and kind of get their thoughts on the episode and, see what I was missing. Because after I watched it, I was kind of shocked in a lot of ways of it just really, not that it rubbed me the wrong way, because there really were good moments, especially from the acting. I think just the direction of the story was a bit off. And then, of course, being online and seeing everyone's reactions to it, and everyone kind of jumping on the ship train, it was a little much for me to handle. So I kind of did have to take a step back. But I'm here now for episode 6. I did not take any notes because what much was there to take notes about, really? So I did rewatch the episode and I have it very fresh in my mind. But yeah, so that's why this video took a bit longer to get out. But sit back, relax, and enjoy. So, okay, episode 6. This one's going to be a bit different for me talking about it just because it was very dialogue heavy. Not much truly happened. First, I'll talk about, I think, Sol and May, right? Of course, he does, after a while, find out that Osha is May. And I do feel like it took him a bit long to come to that conclusion. I was hoping we were going to get a scene with Basil kind of going over to Sol and being like, trying to do charades and trying to tell him that it's not Osha. How he was acting around her was a bit odd, so I did think he kind of knew. But JJ's performance in this episode was very well done. And especially when you have that 30-second scene of him staring at the screen and he lets his anger slip. I think that's a very important thing to show for him, especially after the events of episode 5. He's lost Jackie, he's lost Yord, he basically turned off comms to the Republic, and kind of distanced himself. I do think that he's going to go after May. Sorry. He's going to go after Osha. I'm still confused with them, guys. I swear. I can't do it anymore. I do think he will go after Osha. And I think that's where he might be heading with May. Because May knows the planet, right? Of course. But I think May in here, I think we're going to get a lot more information. Of course, episode 7. As I said, I'm recording this before I've even seen it. I'm hoping for a flashback, and I think that overall, I hope May turns to the light side, and then you have Osha fall to the dark side. Before I get onto Osha Kumar, I want to talk about Venestra and her with the other Jedi when they went down to the forest planet. And I thought that was interesting. It was cool to see the light whip in use. I don't really have many thoughts on it. I think it's okay. I do hope that they come out with a light whip for Galaxy's Edge. I think that would be really cool to see in action and actually in real life. But I don't really have many thoughts on it. I think because I haven't read the books, I really don't feel a certain way towards Venestra or the light whip. I was scarred by seeing Jackie and Yord's dead body. I think that was a little much. Um, just having Jackie's dead eyes look into my soul from the screen, I was like, whoa. Like, that's, I think, the most I felt like the entire episode. Which was a lot. That was, a lot. And I'm glad that Vanestra said that they're going to give them Jedi burials and that they'll have a ceremony. Like, that made me feel like, okay, good. They didn't die for nothing, but Soul did just kind of get out of there. And of course he had to because of Quamar, but it's definitely hard to move on from Jackie and Yord's death. And especially some of the things that were said this episode and people just brushing them off like that makes me really sad because they truly were Osha's friends, and it is sad that of what happened to them. But it was good to know that they were going to get the proper ceremony. So now what you've all been waiting for. Osha and Quamar, the stranger, the Sith. Womp womp. I don't. I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this video. I already know it's gonna come, but oh no. I okay. I wouldn't consider myself a Reylo. I have dabbled in some Reylo, especially when I'm working for other ships that aren't Kylo focused. I like to have them in the background. As a canon ship, I do appreciate Reylo. I think the dyad is something that is so unique to them specifically and integral to their relationship for Ben and Rey, Kylo and Rey, however you want to kind of name that character. Um, for me, I'm excited because I know the Ben and Rey dyad is going to get brought up more and more and more as it goes along in the timeline, right? Because right now we're at Mando and Ahsoka, which is very, very close to um, starting to see Ben Solo training with Luke, and then I'm hoping that when Rey is born, we get that kind of Force dyad. I think that would be really cool to kind of go back on. And if not, if it was kind of created later in the time, because I believe Snoke, I don't know if this was a manipulation tactic or he legitimately did, but he created the dyad between Rey and Kylo later in life. Whichever way it is, I think the dyad is something really cool. Rey and Ben's relationship is such an emotional one, and they can both relate to each other on different levels, and I respect that. I think we spent enough time with them through The Force Awakens. The Last Jedi did a lot for their relationship, but even The Rise of Skywalker, even though Kylo kind of turned back to the dark side, their fight scene on Kepler really cemented that emotional connection, which I felt. And so when it comes to Reylo, I'm not a shipper, but I do understand it and I respect it as a canon ship. Now, let's talk about Osha and Quamar, which are our main subjects. People started shipping them, which I'm not shocked by. You get to, people of different gender and people will just smush their faces together anyway. But Quamar's definitely manipulating her. Can we all just say that right now, please? It was kind of laughable that a lot of people were saying that he wasn't manipulating her and that he was trying to show all of himself. Now, granted, there are two different things. You could still be manipulating someone and also not lying. It's how you word everything that comes out of your mouth. Quamar saying that Jackie would have not loved Osha in the way that Osha wanted her to is just complete BS. I think Jackie was the only one that kind of understood Osha. And even though she had that kind of Jedi upbringing and training, like, I do think her and Osha would have been friends and totally would have had a deeper emotional connection with Yord and Osha. They definitely had something, at the Jedi Temple when they were younger. With Yord, he basically sacrificed his principles to help Osha. She basically told him, we have to go help Soul. And Yord, very much wanting to obey his masters, he didn't want to, right? He wanted to go back to the ship and get Osha safe. But because of Osha, he went back on what he had been taught and what he'd learned and what he believed in to help her, which ultimately led in his death. So Quamar just coming out and saying that immediately was like, shut up. I'm sorry. That's so not what we've been seeing the last episode. And people just kind of brushing that off and saying, oh no, but he's telling the truth. Like, I don't think they would have accepted Osha. I'm like, hey guys, like, I get shipping, but let's really, really read into what Quamar is saying, what he wants, what his motivations are. I think the pool scene, I'm going to call it the pool scene, but the tide scene, that was interesting. I think I mean, as a writer, in a sense, like using lust as a dark side thing or attraction as a dark side thing makes a lot of sense. And I do think the exploration into the dark side in this episode was done well. How that be how people take it, that's I think where it's kind of turning me off the most. But it's very sexual, which is not bad. I personally, now this is me, you have kind of two sides of people to where a lot of people like the relationship type stuff in media, want the romance, want all of that. I hate it. I really don't like romance in my media unless I'm actively pursuing it and I have to be in the mood. Now, stories can have romance and I'll be okay with it, but it cannot be your main focus. And like that episode 6, that was the main focus, which kind of pissed me off. I was just, for one, bored the entire time. 2, I kept comparing it to Reylo. And 3, there was just no, I'm gonna get hate comments for this. I didn't really feel any chemistry between them. I think, which is sad. I've been struggling with kind of following along with Osha since episode 2, really. So I think that might be more of a me problem than how Osha's characterized, but it's just such a quick shift that she drops all of her beliefs and her morals for this dark side user that took his shirt off. And it, when you put it like that, it's so cynical, which I hate. I don't like being cynical about Star Wars or really anything, but reading in between the lines, at the end of the day, it was one episode that they started to show attraction to each other, and I'm sorry, but that doesn't do it for me. I'm gonna need at least 2 or 3 episodes. So I think because of, if this season had 12 episodes, I would be already set. I would be, okay, no, they're gonna lead into more things about this. I think it's gonna go well, blah, blah, blah. But because we're already on episode 6, and then we have episode 7 coming out tomorrow, I'm recording this on Monday, and then episode 8, and that's it. I'm starting to get concerned that we're rushing a little bit. And there's not going to be enough time. I know I'm like 99% sure episode 7 is a flashback. I'm hoping so. But I'm not buying the relationship between the two, no matter if it's sexual or emotional. It's not being sold to me. So, like I said, I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, but y'all have to realize, like, I am not a huge romance person as it is. When it comes to shipping, like, I can dive into romance, but when it's done well, and when I kind of expect it. With this, I was maybe expecting May and Kumar to be a thing, but then just the immediate switch to Osha, it's like, dude, you don't even know her. And I think that's for both of them too. I think she let her guard down a little too quickly. That could be explained because Soul refused to tell her what happened, or that she's starting to doubt in the light side. But it's just, it's sad because it is almost a duplicate of Rey being tempted. But what I liked about Rey is that she was tempted by the dark side, but she never went against what she believed in. No matter what she learned, when she learned that she was Palpatine's granddaughter, when she learned that, Kylo Ren was Ben Solo, and when Kylo killed Han, right? Now she does ship herself to the supremacy in The Last Jedi to help take down Snoke and try to bring him back there. But even after all of that, she doesn't join Kylo. She wants to join Ben. She wants to take Ben's hand, not Kylo's hand. And her standing strong in what she believes in to help her friends, I love that. And that's why I can quite honestly accept Reylo a bit more leniently than I can Oshmir. Oshmar? I think Oshmar's their ship name. It's too quick for me. And overall, this episode kind of had me bored, and I really didn't trust their chemistry. Another thing is like just having two people of the opposite gender on screen together and people just immediately shipping it is a little disheartening. I wouldn't say big, but I did kind of see the chemistry between Jackie and Osha, mainly as friends. I really didn't even see a kind of more deeper relationship there. But then when the actress for Jackie kind of said, no, I was playing it up as kind of like more of a romance, and Jackie kind of fancied Osha, I was like, okay, yeah, I could see that. I would love to see that explored. And then Jackie dies. And I do not blame. We're not going to do shipping wars in 2024. I'm too old for this. But I do think it's interesting that this show has gained so much traction just because of the romance and the relationship of Kumar and Osha. Views have skyrocketed, and it's kind of shocking to me how much of an impact that side of just people have. And I think I get a little intimidated, and I'll be honest with you guys. I think I do get intimidated by that and just how much power they have. And I respect that. It's like you guys like what you like, and I'm glad that you're finding things that you like in the Acolyte. But it's also a little much like, is this going to be 2019 again with Rise of Skywalker, to where you had people boycotting Disney and Star Wars because they killed off Ben Solo, which pissed me off in and of itself. I'm not happy that Ben Solo, was dead, but I wasn't saying, well, Star Wars is ruined, I'm never going to watch Star Wars again. Like, were you really a fan to begin with, or were you just there for that one character? Which I have talked about at length in so many other videos, and that's one of my pet peeves of, do you gatekeep? Do you not gatekeep? Let people do what they do, but, I will definitely publicly say on here, it frustrates me, trying to enjoy things out of Star Wars. I might not agree with them, like this episode. This episode was not for me, but did I go on Twitter and bully people who were having a really good time? And, I didn't do that. I just kind of let it go, and I ended up talking about Kylix at length on my personal Twitter because that's what makes me happy. So yeah, I think this episode was rough for me, and overall, I really don't have any thoughts. Cortosis is interesting. I think Osha putting on the Cortosis mask was really cool. Overall, I think that's going to be my next mask that I end up buying because it's just really freaking cool. It is already sold out though, so I'll have to find it when it maybe goes on sale, or, couple months from now. But that was really cool. Quamar's Scar very much looks like a light whip Scar. I wonder how Vaneshter plays into that. There's really not much else to add. I'm excited for episode 7, and I do hope it's a flashback, and I'm gonna laugh if it's not a flashback. So that was my review of episode 6, and I'll go ahead and move on to episode 7. It was a flashback. Okay, so I just finished episode 7, and it is literally currently 9:50 p.m. So I literally just finished watching it, and oh boy, I have a lot of thoughts. First off, I know I was really harsh in my episode 6 review. That's mainly just because the episode left me very unsatisfied in a sense. Episode 7, in my opinion, blew it out of the park, and it basically got me back invested. I'm here now. I'm sat. I'm really excited for episode 8. I have some concerns, but first I want to do this kind of like a regular episode analysis. So I did take notes this time, yay, because there was a lot that happened and I knew I wasn't going to remember. So here is my episode 7 review. So, of course, we do see Brendok 16 years earlier. I was so happy that it was a flashback. The Jedi on Brendok are surveying the area, which I thought was interesting. Okay, so they're there looking for a force energy that creates life. They did bring up the hyperspace disaster, which I screamed at. If you've not been listening to my Light of the Jedi audiobook podcast on this channel, for one, what are you doing? But two, something that we've been reading about is the Hetzel Prime Cataclysm. That was the hyperspace cataclysm that happened. As I said, if you have not read that book or listened to my beautiful voice talk about the book and read the book, totally do that. But I think them putting that there actually kind of really set a good time period of when this is. So this does take place 100 years after the Hetzel Prime Cataclysm. So that was great to kind of see, and it kind of gave book High Republic readers a little pat on the head. So I did appreciate that, especially as someone who's trying to get into the books. I felt very vindicated. I said, oh my gosh, the books are mentioned. So that was great. Of course, Soul sees the girls, which is what we saw kind of originally in the original flashback of episode 3. And what I love about Soul, love about this episode is that it is from Soul's lone perspective, and I really appreciate that. They, of course, did the perspective of Osha in episode 3, which was great, and them having Soul's main perspective with this episode is really, really good. And it brought up some really interesting wording choices that I think with Leslie, she really did well on choosing what the characters were going through, what they were feeling, and like kind of their beliefs in a way. And I found it honestly kind of fit really well with their characters, and something that I was surprised by to see. So, of course, Soul follows the girls, but is stopped by a door, so he just climbed the wall. I love that for him. I think it was actually really funny. I kind of chuckled at that. Just seeing him scale this wall out of nowhere. I'm like, okay, dude, go off. I really like that from Soul's perspective, his one perspective, he only sees the harsh one. He sees the mothers being, a bit harder on the girls, testing their powers. He doesn't see the softer moments with Mother Anastasia, giving them, little sweets, or even Coral kind of explaining her motherly intentions and like just wanting to kind of be harder on them so they have a bit of a tougher skin. And that's what's is happening and happens in our real world. Truly, is people don't get the full story and tend to come to conclusions without truly understanding what the other person is feeling and what the other person is going through. And I found that really refreshing. Of course, Sol goes back with what he saw, and Torben does mention the Night Sisters, which I thought was something that was really cool. I've been watching, of course, Alex Molly, Star Wars Explained. I always plug them, but they're amazing. And they were talking about how the Courtship of Princess Leia was a big book that had the introduction of Night Sisters in it. So I think that's cool that it's always kind of getting referenced. And just even that throwaway line, like, everyone now knows who the Night Sisters are. It kind of makes sense, but thinking back to, like, the High Republic, like, I think that's so cool that they mentioned it, you know, because it's such different time periods. So I did appreciate that, and I thought that was very cool. They basically go back to the, I don't know, castle, palace. We find out it is a mine, which I thought that was really cool, or a abandoned mine. And of course, Indara doesn't want to go. And quite honestly, she kind of just wants to leave them be, while Sol and Torben are very much like, no, let's, you know, see what they're all about. And I find that interesting. I think that's really important for their characters and who they are as people. Kanaka just sliced the controls to get in. I'm like, okay. And Anasea gets into Torben's mind, and we get to see this from the perspective of Torben, and man, is it creepy. Yeah, I would do anything Anasea says, so she can mind control me any day. But it was very creepy and something we haven't really seen in Star Wars a lot, and I appreciated it. They went on the verge of weird, but it wasn't too weird for me that I felt uncomfortable. And for me, I really appreciated that, because sometimes shows, sci-fi, they go almost too far with it, and it's just like, stop, I can't do it. But with this one, I felt like, okay, no, this kind of fits with the witches, and, you know, and because of Torben's doubts, because he wanted to go back to Coruscant, Anasea was able to weave herself in. So it had a true story reason as to why, and I appreciated that, truly. How Indaris describes the Coven is really interesting. She, of course, you know, sees how they're acting, all of that, and she calls it insular and strange. And in our society, of course, we have many different religions, races, I mean, all over the world. And for a lot of people, it is insular and strange. And that, of course, breeds fear. And fear breeds a lot of control and wanting to control, which then leads to war and chaos. So Indara was probably the best person in this episode. She really was just trying to be on the right side of everything. But even she, you know, calls it insular and strange. And her wording with that is so interesting, and something that it's interesting that the Jedi use that type of vocabulary when talking about this Force Coven. Sol then brings up the Jedi have a duty to protect children, which sounds, and now we're getting to real world self. It's not, I mean, you know, it sounds like what a lot of people say, like, well, we have to protect the children. And what I love Indara's response to that is, do not confuse what you want with what Osha wants. Just that line, immediately I was like, whoa, this has such a deeper meaning to it. Take it how you would like, but for me, honestly, a lot of times you will have people use their fear and their misunderstanding of situations to influence these children that don't really know any better. And quite honestly, with Osha is a bit different because she was unhappy, but with May, she was happy with where she was. So I found that was interesting, and I loved that line. That was one of my favorite lines. May just wants to be with the Coven, and yet the Jedi are very scared. May was very much like, just tell me what I need to do. She, of course, very bluntly failed the test. And, of course, Sol and Indara knew that, but she was very much like, can I go back to my coven now? Can I go home, please? She really did not want to be there. And quite honestly, it made me kind of feel sad for her. I was like, she doesn't want to do this. Like, these adults are forcing her. They did ask her about the ascension, and how May described it definitely seemed like she was in more danger than she realized. And of course, because because Sol and Indara really didn't understand, they kind of were like, oh. But Indara, like, Sol was very much like, oh, that's weird. That's scary. I don't like that. And Indara said, well, thank you for explaining that to me. And, like, even if it was kind of like her keeping her calm, Indara, honestly, queen. I think she's like my favorite character right now. She really tried to do as much as she could and stick to the Jedi code, while also being considerate of other people's religions. Throughout this episode, she brings up, well, you have different cultures. You have, different cultures on planets do rituals and everything. And Sol just didn't want to hear it. He said, but these kids are in danger. So, Andara, queen, I see you. I love you. I respect you. Of course, they learn that the twins are created from the Force, and I think them using the blood samples are something really cool. And Torben just wants to get home, man. Just send the man home. He just wants to go. Anastasia is a good mother. I was really concerned that with everything, after, we see her perspective of when Osha asked, please, I want to be a Jedi. And Anastasia says, I will, you know, bring your wishes up to the council. I was really scared that they were going to show Anastasia being like, nah, we're not going to listen to her, like, whatever. But no, Anastasia basically tells her coven, we have to respect what she wants. We have to even think of it as, we have to discuss this. And of course, even the coven being like, well, you're our leader. The child is too young to make this decision for herself. And Anastasia says something along the lines of, well, should we be making this decision for her? Like, who are we to make this decision? She might not be old enough, but like, is it our place to? And I was just like, whoa. Like, I see you, Leslie. You are really taking the steps to bring in this underlying tone of, or underlying kind of, I do not know the vocabulary word, but there's such a deeper meaning, underlying meaning, basically, to what Anastasia, Osha, the Jedi are all saying. And I find that really special. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. But if you kind of get what I'm insinuating, like, I think it has such a deeper meaning. And with Anastasia, like, her respecting that and basically telling the coven, I'm a mother, before a leader, and I choose to be a mother. And she wants what's best for Osha, but at the same time, she wants Osha to be happy. And oh my god, Mother Anastasia. Like, Anastasia and Ndara, my queens, my lovelies, you've done nothing wrong in your life. Thank you. May, of course, is getting mad with Mother Coral, and Coral does definitely push May to hone in kind of the dark side. I knew kind of Coral was going to do this, but I mean, it is what it is. Quite honestly, the Jedi did kind of frame themselves as if they were going to attack because Torben just ran off, basically wanting to get home and knowing that the girls were the key to him getting home. His mind was probably still messed up very much from the witches. So the Jedi storming the castle, basically, right? Put Coral and the rest of the coven on edge. And, like, that's fair. Like, the Jedi are breaking in the middle of the night. Like, none of this is quote unquote legal. And of course, May did start the fire, and I was totally right at being mad at her. If you remember back when episode 3 aired, I was like, I hate May, I do not like her, how dare she? And everyone was like, wait, no, but like, that totally wasn't all her. Like, no, May is not that bad. No, May is evil. And no, that was all her fault. And none of that would have happened if she didn't start that fire. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So, I thought that was interesting. Before I get on to the Anasea, Coral, all of them fighting together, what I did find interesting is that Indara did reach out to the council on Coruscant and basically asked, because Sol wanted to take Osha, right? And she said, well, let me convene with Coruscant, who are going to let you train her or not. And basically, they said no. They said the Jedi had already interfered enough, and that they needed to go. That they should not worry about it anymore. And Sol says, nah, this is my problem. And Indara's like, no, like, we cannot intervene. Like, you do not change Osha's story. That shouldn't be changed. This is her destiny, right? And like I said, Indara, you were doing so much this episode. Thank you. You're the only one that was actually thinking with their brain. So I thought that interesting too, is like Coruscant didn't even want to intervene. The Jedi Council were like, nah, like, that's their culture. Like, this is what we have to do. But individuals, Sol, basically let his fear control him. And yeah, it was not good. Not good whatsoever. So May did start the fire. Anasea, the queen, says someday those noble intentions you all have will destroy the galaxy. Which basically, because Sol said, but we have noble intentions, well, storming the castle. And of course, Anasea and Korra weren't having it. They were like, guys, come on, like, let's chill. Sol killed Anasea, and like, to tell you, I was devastated. I'm still devastated. I haven't moved on. I knew she was dead. And like, I'm kind of glad that May didn't kill her. Like, I think that kind of works contextually better. But Sol, really? Sweet Sol? Please, no. And like, JJ's performance, of course, in this episode, absolutely amazing. As always. I feel like I don't even have to say that every episode because it's just kind of a normal now. But you could see him when fighting Mother Coral, him loosening. He doesn't want to fight her. He is devastated. I think he even kind of felt Coral's grief after killing Anasea. So him and Coral's angry. She's like, why won't you fight me? Fight me. And Sol just basically wants to die. He was like, what have I done? Anasea saying, I would have given Osha to you if she wanted to go. And like, I was on your side. Like, oh, good God. Hurts me in the feels. But truly, like, honestly, I was a good mother, and I'll die on that hill. Coral was a good mother as well. I think she had her intentions and truly did love the girls and love Anasea. I think she just wanted to do best for her people, while Anasea wanted to do the best for her girls, which is totally fair. Either side is fair. I'm not mad at Coral for kind of like getting May mad and like having her kind of lose her temper. It's not the best, but it's fair. I don't think Coral knew she was gonna blow up the entire coven. I think Coral thought like she wanted May to kind of persuade her. And I think May just took that the wrong way. So I thought that was interesting. Of course, Sol let his control fear him. He let his fear control him. And because it's an old mine, that's why the fire got so big, and I was glad that made sense. And Coral and the Coven possesses Kelnaga. That was a really good fight scene, and I thought overall it was done very well. I knew it was kind of going to happen, but how it happened was interesting. I do think that the Coven and Coral did die for one, because of the fire, and two, because they were trying to control Kalnaka, and it took so much of them and so much of their strength that they did end up dying. I do think that was kind of the purpose. Um, Sol chose Osha over May, which is really, really bad when you look at it. He flat out, I know he couldn't say both. It's one of those, like, would you hit one person or would you hit a whole group of people with a train? Like, but it's hard, and that's probably hard for May to hear too. I can only imagine what she's thinking. And yeah, that's tragic. It's something that I really wasn't expecting Sol to do. But granted, Sol surprised me this episode, so he surprised me in the worst ways. So, that was a lot. They all have trauma. You could see that Sol is just, like, really, really shaken by killing Anasea. Literally, like, really, really shaken. And, of course, he wants to turn himself into the council. And Indara says, no. You've sacrificed this girl's life, basically. Taken away her family, her sister, her mother's. And, like, you turning yourself in is like a cop-out, basically. And kind of relaying the responsibility of her to somebody else. And Indara, like, sets him straight and says, no, like, this is your responsibility. And, like, we're gonna lie to the council. And then he lies to Osha, which then leads into where we are now. I do think Indara pressured Sol to lie, but I think it came from the right place. And she was just so done as it is. Honestly, Queen, I respected that out of her. So, overall, this episode was really, really damn good. It brought me back to overall the series. I was talking with a couple of people who are not really, really in-depth Star Wars fans, and they were angry with the episode, surprisingly. They really did not feel like it was earned whatsoever, or in the fact that we have one episode left, and we don't really know where we're going to go from this. Is Tenebris going to be brought in? What is happening with Osha and Kumar? Where is Sol and May relationship-wise? Is May going to be mad? Is she going to be she's going to understand where Sol came from? I don't know. And it's hard when doing these reviews. I love doing these. But it's hard when talking about it and, like, wanting the series to succeed so much. And I truly did enjoy this episode. I did not enjoy episode 6, but I did enjoy this episode. But I can't help but be concerned for episode 8. I've seen a lot of mixed things on this series as it is. The review bombing is one thing. I do not condone that, and I think anyone who participated that is actually not mentally okay. But I do think there are truly some problems with this show, and I'm interested with episode 8 if I'm going to feel the same as I did this episode, where I felt really, really good and I'm actually enjoying the series, or if I felt more like episode 6 and I don't think the series is for me. I think this is more of a Disney Plus problem as well. This show could have been a movie. I say that with almost every show that comes out. Obi-Wan could have been a movie. I think Ahsoka was done okay. Book of Boba Fett could have been a movie. And with Andor, Tony Gilroy, already had so much pull as it is, but he was able to fight for 12 episodes, and it shocks me that Andor was so well done, mainly because you were able to sit with the characters and actually be with the characters, while with Acolyte, we have 8. And that's 4 extra episodes we probably could have had. And can I just tell you that would have helped so much. And you know me, guys. I love talking about the industry and the ins and out of an industry, and a lot of people seem to not bring up what goes into making a TV show. I don't have all of the answers, but I can tell you that half the problem with this show's pacing is probably because they couldn't do more than 8 episodes. Because they weren't allowed to do 8 episodes, or because they weren't allowed to do more than 8 episodes. Ahsoka was 8 episodes. I was rewatching some live streams and reviews today on Ahsoka. The number one complaint that I saw in that chat from 25,000 other people was it should have been longer. Now, we always want more as fans. I'm going to say that as a fan, and even as someone who wants the show to progress. But there's a point where you have too much, and then there's a point where you have too little. And with the Acolyte, we're hitting too little. I don't know how they're gonna. I really don't. I don't know how they're gonna circle this up for episode 8. I didn't really feel this way with Ahsoka. Ahsoka, I kind of knew where it was gonna go, or I had an idea of where it was gonna kind of lead into. Obi-Wan Kenobi, I had an idea of where it was gonna end. And it's just like, well, Mando season 3 as well. Like, I understood where kind of that was gonna end. With this, I'm really shot in the dark. I have no idea what's gonna happen, which is exciting for those types of people, but for me, it's scary. I want this show to succeed as much as the next person, but I am concerned that they've almost shot this show too much. And I think it might have needed more time in the story department and the writer's room, in the sense of putting something that was cohesive and something that we were able to fit into 8 episodes and not question. What's hard with this show too, and why I hate being so harsh on it, but it kind of is important to be harsh on it, is because it is the only show out of the Skywalker saga, which can cause a lot of people to feel like this show is almost lesser or not giving enough, as Ahsoka or Obi-Wan Kenobi did. And those shows have a helping hand with having these legacy characters and having them know who they are. We know who they are. Even if you don't watch Rebels or haven't watched the Clone Wars with Obi-Wan, we still know who these characters are, and people can connect with these characters so quickly. With Acolyte, I'm not connecting with the characters, and I think that's the most detrimental part of this series. And truly, like, I think why I like this episode the most is because I loved Indara. I loved Anasea. Coral was really interesting as a character to follow. Soul, seeing his perspective was really interesting. Torben, amazing. Kelnaka didn't really have a part, but also I'll say Kelnaka. When it came to episode 6, I was just like, we've just jumped so far. I think it would be really interesting to go back and watch the series from start to finish without waiting a week in advance, right? Now, if I do have time, I might just rewatch the entire series before I watch episode 8. That might give me kind of a better, well-rounded idea of where this season of Acolyte is, but I'm concerned, guys. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. If you made it this far to almost an hour of me talking about the Acolyte, then congratulations. But yeah, I'm concerned. So I really don't know where they're gonna go from here. Are we bringing in Tenebris? Are we bringing back Venestra? Soul, May, Osha, and Kumar. Those are our final characters that we have in this series. Tenebris I kind of put out there because we do have we still have an actor. I do not know who or what his name is that has not showed up, and I do think that he will be the big bad. But even just someone bringing that up and like seeing that he was in the official cast list, I go, hold up. Why are we doing this the last episode? This is going to feel so quick and so undeserved in a sense. Let's focus on Kumar. Let's focus on Venestra, and see where that leads us. One of the reasons, I'm sorry, I love my Smilo Ren. I love my Kumar. I love my Stranger. But other than he's hot, I haven't really seen people truly talk about his character in depth. And I think it's because we don't know so much about him. I love Manny and how he portrays Kumar and his mannerisms and everything about the character. It's great. But can we truly sit down and take a second to be like, oh no, this character is well-rounded and I have a great idea of who he is? Is he lying to Osha? Yes. Is he manipulating Osha? Yes. But half the audience is not getting that, which is not good either. Again, that's more episode 6 stuff, which I know I talked about. It just has me concerned. But I need to not be concerned because, again, if I don't end up not liking the Acolyte, I will not make it my entire personality. I will focus more on stuff I like, because that's what I like doing. But I also like giving you guys my opinion, and especially as someone who's just getting in the High Republic, I think it's important to showcase everyone's kind of opinions, from High Republic fans to people who've never heard about the High Republic to someone who's trying to get into it. So anyway, guys, I think I've talked enough for this review. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate it, and I will see you guys